this video, we will continue the coverage of the file writer blocks. As you may remember from the previous video, typing file into the block graph editor search bar shows all the available file-related blocks. Last time, we focused on the raw IQ file writer and the audio wave file writer. The raw IQ file writer takes unfiltered float32 IQ data directly from the Spectran V6 Eco and streams it to the hard drive. In this video, we will look at another way to capture data using the general file writer block. Add the file writer by double-clicking it in the search results. The raw IQ file writer has an IQ input for unfiltered data. In contrast, here we will connect the general file writer to the output of the IQ Power Spectrum block. That means the raw IQ file writer receives unfiltered IQ directly after the A to D converter, while the general file writer receives filtered data after the IQ Power Spectrum. There is a separate video dedicated to the IQ Power Spectrum block, but we will briefly look at its key settings. These settings are what make the difference between recording raw IQ and recording process spectra. After the IQ Power Spectrum, you can apply various options. You can choose the FFT mode, for example, between a standard FFT or a resolution bandwidth filter. You can set the FFT size. You can also select the FFT window type, which is something you cannot do directly on the raw IQ output from the V6 Eco. So the general file writer captures data that has already gone through this IQ Power Spectrum processing. Now, let's look more closely at the file writer settings. You will still see the raw IQ file writer listed, but we will keep its window small so we can focus on the new file writer. Double-click the file writer block to open its properties menu. Some settings are similar to the raw IQ file writer, but not identical. Slide the properties window so you can see the entire set of options. At the top, the file writer is listed, but a file name has not yet been defined. Just as with the raw IQ file writer, you can enter the file name either in the list at the top or in the file name field below. Click the folder icon and choose a directory, for example, the audio folder under C:\temp. Enter a base name such as file_streaming and confirm. We now have a defined location and base file name for our recordings. Before we go further, note that there are 3 ways to save data from this block. If you do not specify a file extension in the name, the default is .rtsa. This format is used for IQ or IQ Spectrum data within the Spectran environment. There is also a .dat option, which is intended for video or tracking data. We will not cover that here, so we will leave the extension at .rtsa. Keep in mind that the raw IQ file writer produces float32 IQ data that can be read directly by external tools such as Python for post-processing. RTSA recordings created by this file writer are encrypted to an internal standard and are intended for use inside RTSA Suite Pro. They are not meant to be opened directly in Python or C#. You will notice some familiar options in the file writer properties. There is an Auto Start checkbox, but for this demonstration, we will leave Auto Start disabled on the file writer. We want the raw IQ file writer to stay dormant and focus on the filtered data path. Similar to the previous video, you have options to add index and add date. You can also enable Auto Split File. When you turn on Auto Split File, additional settings become available. Here, you can set the preview duration, which controls how long each preview snippet is. For example, we can set this to about 1 second. You can define the maximum size of each file. This behaves much like the maximum size setting for the raw IQ file writer. You can adjust this to suit your workflow, up to a maximum of about 1 terabyte per file. There is also a split period, which sets a time-based limit. If the split period, for example 1 hour, expires before the maximum file size is reached, the file writer will still close and save the file at that time. In other words, it saves by file size or by time, whichever comes first. Finally, there is a limit folder option. This lets you define a maximum total size for the recording folder. This helps protect your hard drive from being filled completely by long-running recordings. When this limit is reached, the software can raise a flag so you can take appropriate action. These are the main settings for the file writer. They are conceptually similar to the raw IQ file writer options, but you have a bit more flexibility in how files are split and how folder size is controlled. As before, you can also choose to use overwrite for a single stream recording, or rely on auto split file to keep recording with incremented indices. For this example, we will enable auto split file so the file writer keeps recording with automatically indexed file names. We will leave auto start turned off for the file writer block itself. Auto start is already active on the Spectran V6 Eco device, so starting the device will start the data stream. Now click Start on the Spectran V6 Eco. Keep in mind, we are at a particular center frequency and currently using the full span, which in this setup is 44 MHz. You can see how quickly 1 GB files are created. Open the temp directory where we are writing the RTSA files and watch them appear. They are created rapidly and numbered according to the index and date settings we selected. Stop the acquisition. Next, reduce the span. Set the span to 1/8 of the full bandwidth. Start the device again. We are still recording, but the bandwidth is now only 1/8 of what it was before. The maximum file size remains 1 GB, but it takes much longer for a file, such as file number 7, to reach that limit. You can also check the health monitor to see what is being recorded at this moment. The health monitor shows the active bandwidth and data rate. The file writer block includes a small preview window that shows the same spectrum or waterfall view as the main display. If you want to see both in parallel, simply drag the waterfall tab into a lower pane. Now you can monitor exactly what you are recording, while the file writer shows file status and size. If you look back at the directory, you can see that file number 7 has now reached the 1 GB size, and the next file has started. This has been a short introduction to recording files using the general file writer block. The main difference compared to the raw IQ file writer is that this path records filtered data after the IQ power spectrum, where FFT size, window, and resolution bandwidth settings are applied. The raw IQ file writer, on the other hand, records the unfiltered Float32 IQ data directly. For more information, check out our other videos on our YouTube page or visit AaroniaUSA.com.